welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and these are 10 Commander staples that I never play. You know, when I first started my channel, my very first video I did was just sort of an introduction video about how I build decks, and I mentioned in that video certain cards that I don't use. So this video is going to include some of those cards, and I also early in my channel made an overrated cards video, cards that I thought were overrated in the format, that I will also include some of those cards in this list as well. So a lot of these cards on this list, these are cards that I never put in decks, even though they're Commander staples, and for various reasons. So first of all, honorable mentions, I will say Arcane Denial and Force of Will. These are two very popular counterspells in the format that I have never put in a deck. Force of Will to me is just one of those cards that feels like a CEDH card. I'm not saying it is. I'm okay if someone plays a Force of Will in a Commander game, but like I said in my casual or not video, it feels like a CEDH card, so when someone plays it, you just get the feeling like they're playing a very high-powered deck, and it sort of attracts attention to you. Arcane Denial, to me, is just very overrated. It lets your opponent draw two cards, right? It is bad card advantage. In fact, both of these cards are actually bad card advantage. Force of Will, 99.9% of the time it's cast, exiles a blue card from your hand. So it's a 2-for-1, right? Your opponent is losing one spell, you're losing two. So it's a 2-for-1 in the opposite direction in a bad way. Arcane Denial is the same thing, right? If I have one card in my hand and I cast it, and my opponent casts an Arcane Denial, and that's the only card in their hand, they're going to draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep, and I'm going to draw two. So now I have more cards in my hand than they do. That's bad card advantage. I know people like these cards. I don't particularly like them. I think especially now there are a lot of better options. For me, I'm only going to put Arcane Denial in a deck where I want my opponents to draw, like maybe a Nekusar deck. So getting to the list, coming in at number 10 is Harmonize. And, you know, I don't know if this is a Commander staple anymore. It's definitely been reprinted a ton. I've seen it in Commander a lot. It's a 2 green sorcery, draw 3 cards. That's it. So 4 mana, draw 3. That's pretty good. For me personally, and I will probably make a video about drawing cards in Commander at some point, I don't like one-shots. For me, I would rather have a synergistic way of drawing cards that fits with what my deck's doing, or a repeatable draw effect. Just a spell that you cast and you get a couple of cards off of it, I don't love in a Commander game. There's a bunch of cards that I could probably put in the spot that I never play. Night's Whisper is another one that everyone loves that I never use. Harmonize for me though is really fallen off though, because green has so much fantastic card draw. Again, the synergistic stuff like Guardian Project, where it's going to be fantastic in any creature heavy deck, or the Great Henge, again, going to be fantastic in any creature heavy deck. Rishkar's Expertise, which is fantastic in any deck where I have a go tall strategy or any really big creatures. There's just so many better options that I really don't think Harmonize ever needs to go in your deck, to be quite honest. Coming in at number 9, Wheel of Fortune. Man, people really love this card. I don't. I've never used it. It is obviously fantastic if you're in a wheel theme, right? If you're in that Nekusar deck where you want your opponents to be drawing and discarding. If you're in a Riel deck where you want to be discarding, right? If you're in any theme where you want to be drawing lots or wheeling, Locust God, discarding lots, you want your opponents to be drawing or discarding, right? There's lots of decks where that fits the theme of what you're doing. But if you're not in a deck where Wheel of Fortune fits your theme, I just don't think it's that great. This card was busted back in the day because in a 2-player format, it's just my opponent discards their hand and then draws 7. I get to discard my hand and draw 7. So it was really good in a deck where you emptied your hand super fast and then you would wheel and your opponent is getting no advantage out of it and you're drawing a fresh new hand. In Commander though, because it's typically a 4-player format, this is all 3 of your opponents are refilling their hands, right? This is, I draw 7 cards, my opponents draw 21 cards. Okay, again, that to me seems like bad card advantage. Opponent already has a full hand or even an over full hand, it can be good, but typically you're letting at least 1 or 2 or even 3 of your opponents refill their hands as well. I see a lot of people use this card just as a draw spell, right? Like I'm in mono red and I think it's a good draw spell because it lets lets me draw 7, but it lets your opponents draw 7 as well. I really don't like it. Like I said, it's great if you specifically are in that strategy of drawing and discarding, but other than that, I wouldn't play it. I've never put it in a deck myself. Coming in at number 8, Consecrated Sphinx. 4 blue Sphinx, 4/6 with flying. Whenever an opponent draws a card, you may draw 2 cards. So fantastic card in the format. This is a card that fits into the other category of cards that I don't play, which is definitely is good. No question. This card is fantastic in a commander game. I had put this in my cards that I don't really see anymore, my original cards I don't see anymore video, because it really did start to wane. And a lot of people commented on that video that they see it all the time and they still have it in all their decks. Okay, for me, I used to see this in every single game. Now I don't see it in every, I do see it once in a while, but I don't see it nearly as much as I used to. This used to be one of the most popular cards in the entire format when I first started playing. And that's why I don't play it, right? I don't play it because I'm just sick of it. There's a few cards on this list that I don't play just because it was so ubiquitous back in the day that I don't want to put it in my deck because I'm tired of seeing it. This is one of those cards. That's why I don't play it. Coming in at number 7, Mana Crypt. And I'm also going to throw in here Ancient Tomb. Some of these I put together because they're very similar, or at least the reason why I don't play them is very similar. So Mana Crypt and Ancient Tomb to me are very similar. They both add 2 colorless mana. They're similar there. Also, they're dealing you lots of damage. Also, they are very high-powered cards. Again, one of the reasons I don't play this, and again, I'm not saying that these aren't casual cards, but there definitely is people out there that when they see an Ancient Tomb on turn 1 or a Mana Crypt, it just kind of gives them this feeling that maybe the deck you're playing isn't very casual. So that's part of the reason why I avoid them, but not entirely the reason. The main reason why I don't play them is because I just don't think they're that great in a casual game. And the reason why is because a casual game goes long, or at least it should be, right? These cards are extra good in competitive games because the damage doesn't really matter that much that you're getting. I can't count how many times I've seen someone take incredible amounts of damage from their Ancient Tomb from tapping it and tapping it and tapping it again. I really don't think people keep track. For all the people out there that love Ancient Tomb in their casual decks, keep track. The next time you have an Ancient Tomb turn 1, actually have a piece of paper there and keep track of the amount of damage you take from it in the entire game, because I think a lot of people don't even notice. You're getting damage from lots of different sources, so I think you don't notice the amount of damage you're taking from your own Ancient Tomb. There's no alternative with Ancient Tomb, right? It is add 2 mana, take 2 damage. That's it. There is no option to take no damage there. It only deals damage. Mana Crypt, same thing. I myself have won 3 commander games because of Mana Crypt. And not because I had it, because my opponent had it. That's right. 3 commander games I have won because my opponent on their upkeep had 3 or less life left, flipped the coin, lost the flip, and killed themselves. Not the funnest way to win ever, but nevertheless, I've won 3 games because of it. Just think about it this way, okay? If a commander game lasts 10 turns, let's say, I think 10 is a fair amount of turns for a commander game. If you flip 50-50 and you play your Mana Crypt turn 1, that means 5 out of those 10 turns, you're going to be dealing damage to yourself. That's 15 damage. 15 damage you're taking from your own Mana Crypt. That's a lot. I will say in a deck where you're already flipping coins, maybe it's a card that you want to put in there, but the combination of I'm attracting attention to myself because I have these fast mana things that are coming out early, and the fact that I'm dealing a ton of damage to myself over the course of a longer game, to me, makes these cards just not any cards that I want to put in my decks. Coming in at number 6, and this is an interesting one, Merciless Eviction. 4 white, black, sorcery. Choose 1, exile all artifacts, or all creatures, or all enchantments, or all planeswalkers. It was shocking to me to find out when I first started looking at EDH Rec and all the popular cards in the format, this is the most popular board wipe in the entire format. That was shocking to me. I couldn't believe it. I think it's just okay. I mean, the fact that it exiles, there's not a lot of board wipes that exile. The fact that it's versatile is good, but really, I think 99% of the time I've ever seen this cast, it's exile all creatures. So 6 mana to exile all creatures is okay, not fantastic. The fact that it's also 2 colors means that it's very limiting. I think Austere Command is just straight up better than this. Also 6 mana, it's mono white, so it fits in more decks. You get to hit 2 modes rather than just 1. Yeah, it doesn't exile, but so what? I get to destroy all the big creatures and all the artifacts? I think that's way better. This is the one card that I actually did put in a deck. Early in the days of playing Commander, I put this in a couple decks and then realized it's not that great. 6 mana to exile all creatures or exile all artifacts, I just didn't love it. Really didn't love it. And especially now with all of the new white and black board wipes that have come out in recent years, I don't think there's any reason to put Merciless Eviction in your deck unless there's a specific reason to do so. Coming in at number 5, Oracle of Mul Daya, and I've talked about this before. I have a Commander Quick Take where I talk about why I don't play this card. I'm sure we've all seen it before, as we've seen all the cards on this list before. Nevertheless, 3 and a green, Elf Shaman 2/2. You may play an additional land on each of your turns, play with the top card of your library revealed, and you may play lands from the top of your library. So 3 things happening there. 2 of them are fantastic, playing an additional land and playing lands from the top of your library. But that middle one, playing with top card of your library revealed, I think is awful, and that's why I don't like this card. I just recently played a game where this exact thing happened. My opponent had Oracle of Mul Daya and had Blatant Thievery on top of their library. And I'm like, well, isn't that interesting? I brought it to the attention of my other opponents in case they didn't notice, but everyone knew he had it. Like, that's what makes this card to me not very good, and I never put it in decks. I hate revealing the top of my library. I actually changed the way I played my next turn because of it. I had a counterspell in my hand, and I was going to do a bunch of stuff, but instead I left 2 mana up for that counterspell because I knew they had a Blatant Thievery on top of their library and they were going to cast it. I hate revealing the top card of my library. You can put any card in this spot that reveals the top card of your library. I think it's awful to do so, letting all of your opponents know what you draw every single turn. It's literally like revealing every card you draw each turn and showing your opponents what it is. It's awful. I think that's a terrible disadvantage in a Commander game. Maybe in a landfall deck it's worth playing that because of the extra land, but other than that, I would never touch this card personally. They changed the wording where they don't do the reveal the top card of your library all the time because it's such a huge disadvantage. You just may look at the top card of your library and do it at any time. That is way better in my opinion. So Oracle Mul Daya is a card that I never have put in a deck before, and I think there's even less of a reason to put in a deck now. Coming in at number 4 is Craterhoof Behemoth and Expropriate. Basically the I win cards that people play a lot. Again, these are cards that everyone just auto-included in all their decks. If you're playing a blue deck, you just played Expropriate because it's so good and it's basically a win con. I mean, it doesn't really win you the game, but take an extra turn and gain control of all your opponent's best permanents. Like, it's such a massive advantage. Craterhoof Behemoth, as I've stated before on this channel, is the card that I have lost to more than any other card by far. I've lost so many games to this card. These are great cards. I'm not saying they're not. I'm not saying that you shouldn't play them. Just like with Consecrated Sphinx, these are cards that I don't play because I'm just sick of seeing them and I am sick of losing to them. That's why I don't play them. It's just a personal opinion for me. There's definitely good cards. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm not saying you shouldn't play them. I definitely would be okay with people playing them less, so I don't have to run into them so much. You could also throw Aetherflux Reservoir in here. That's a card that I just really don't like. You know, target player loses the game. Not really a fun way to lose the game where your opponent just smashes you for 50 damage. Craterhoof Behemoth, very similar. That's why I started putting Settle the Wreckage and Aether Spouts in all of my decks. It was basically my anti-Craterhoof Behemoth card. Comeuppance was my anti-Aetherflux Reservoir card. I really like that card a lot. In fact, Comeuppance works against both Craterhoof Behemoth and Aetherflux Reservoir, so I started putting that card in all my decks. I just don't love losing to these cards, so I don't want my opponents to do the same, right? I'm not a hypocrite, right? If I'm going to sit there and complain about a card, I'm not going to then put it in my deck, right? So that's why I don't play these cards. Coming in at number 3 is Rhystic Study, and this is sort of a culmination of a lot of the things I'm talking about. Rhystic Study, again, is a card that is ubiquitous. Obviously, it's really good in the format, no question about that. So part of the reason I don't play it is because of you see it everywhere, and I just don't love playing cards that everyone else is playing all the time. Second reason I don't love it is because it is a card that makes you a target, and sort of one of my fundamental deck building strategies is trying not to make myself a target. A lot of the cards on this list are cards that will make you a target, and I don't want to ever be doing that in a casual Commander game. It's also just really annoying, right? As we all know, are you going to pay 1 for that? Are you going to pay 1 for that? Are you going to pay 1 for that? That gets really on my nerves a lot. I don't like having to deal with it when it's on the table. So again, I'm not going to be a hypocrite, so I'm not going to replay it. There's a lot of reasons why I'm not putting this card in any of my decks. It's annoying, it makes you a target, it's a really powerful card, it's also a really expensive card, right? There's a bunch of reasons to not play this. It is a really good card, no question, but for me, I can do just fine without it. Never put it in a deck myself. Coming in at number 2, and this might surprise a lot of people, is Smothering Tithe. And this is a card, in fact, the top 2 cards on this list, and part of the reason why I'm making this video is cards that I have recently decided to stop putting in my decks. Smothering Tithe, I have put in a lot of decks. As a guy who plays a lot of white, it's a card that I used a lot in the beginning. I loved it because it did help white a lot. It has become incredibly ubiquitous in the format. Of the top cards on EDH Rec, it is currently number 13. Of all the cards in the format, is the 13th most popular card, which is shocking. Pretty much everyone throws it in their deck if they can. It's in over 100,000 decks currently on EDH Rec. I mean, it's really powerful. It's really great. Basically, it has become Rhystic Study. You know, for all of the reasons why I don't play Rhystic Study, Smothering Tithe has become that card, right? In the beginning, I was okay with it. It's a great card, but it has essentially turned into Rhystic Study. You know, the annoying, are you going to pay for that? It's now an expensive card. It's one of those cards that makes you a target as soon as you play it. Everybody wants to get it off the table. Just having it in play makes people want to attack you, right? It draws attention to you. All of the reasons why I don't play Rhystic Study, I've now realized Smothering Tithe is the same thing. So I've started taking it out of all my decks. I might still have it in a couple of decks, maybe in my mono white decks, but all the other decks I've taken it out of for all of those reasons that I already mentioned. Really great card, no question about it. But for me, you know, if you're in a artifact theme, you know, where you want lots of artifacts in play, if you're in a treasure token theme, obviously it's great. If there was a specific reason why I wanted to put it in a deck, like those reasons where I'm in a token theme or an artifact theme, I might put it in there. But just I auto include it in all my decks. I'm not going to be doing that anymore. Me personally, I'm going to start shying away from auto include cards. And of course, the most auto include card in the entire format, and number 1 on my list, is Soul Ring. That's right. I have decided that I am going to start not putting Soul Rings in my decks, and I talked about this on my Patreon quite a bit, and I've started encouraging my patrons to do the same. I started thinking about this after I made my, rules changes video about the things that I would change in Commander, whether or not you could ban Soul Ring because it's a mana positive mana rock, and as I say, if you're going to ban one, why not ban them all? If you're banning them for that reason, right? If you're banning the Moxes because they're expensive and not accessible, that's one thing. If you're banning them just because they're really powerful though, Soul Ring, what's the difference? For me, Soul Ring and Mana Crypt are essentially the same. One costs 0 but has a downside. The other one costs 1 and has no downside. I would argue Soul Ring is better in a casual game, but more to the point, it's the most popular card in the entire format. It's ubiquitous. It's an auto include for everyone. I don't like that. And again, on EDH Rec, it's only an 80% of all the decks on EDH Rec, okay? Because that obviously can go in all decks. So for me, that tells me that there's actually 20% of decks out there that aren't putting Soul Ring in. So maybe I'm not the only one with this thought process. There are people out there that aren't putting Soul Rings in their deck for various reasons. Again, going to the Smothering Tithe Rhystic Study sort of argument, it is a card that does make you a target. Even though everyone has one, playing a Soul Ring turn 1 definitely does make you a target. Everyone is now focused on you because you have that fast mana right away. But for me, more to the point, as I talked about in that video, where if it got banned, I would not have an issue with it at all. I would just replace it with something more synergistic in my deck. I thought, you know what? Well, why don't I do that then? Why don't I just take it out and put something in my deck that is more synergistic, that's going to fit with my deck? You have all these new cards coming out all the time where I'm just like, oh man, these cards are so cool. I can't find room for them. Now I can find room for them because when a new card comes out in a set, I'll just take my Soul Ring out and put that card in instead. It's a fun, interesting card that I want to fit in my deck and play with. Soul Ring's not fun or interesting. It's really, really boring, right? So I'm going to take Soul Ring out and replace it with some of these new cards coming out that I really want to play with. If you just took Soul Ring out of your deck, I think you probably wouldn't even notice, to be quite honest, because the only time you're really going to notice it is when you get it on turn 1 or really early on. Later in the game, it really isn't that great. So I think if you took Soul Ring out of your deck and put a lot of more useful synergistic things in there, you probably wouldn't even notice, and it might even maybe improve your deck. So I'm not necessarily advocating here for banning Soul Ring or taking it out of your decks. People can do as they like. A lot of people in that video said that Soul Ring helps non-green decks because now you have a way of ramping, and green's so good at ramping, but of course that's a silly argument since green can also use Soul Ring. So I'm not sure how that makes any argument to even out with green. You're not exactly hindering the green decks by keeping Soul Ring around. Nevertheless, I'm not calling for it to be banned. I'm definitely okay with it getting banned because I'm already taking it out of all my decks. I don't like having all these auto includes where I'm going to put them in my deck no matter what. And of course, Soul Ring is the epitome of that because it fits in every deck. And by taking it out, you're just making room for something maybe a little more interesting that fits the theme of the deck you're playing. But that is my list. Those are 10 cards that are staples in the format that I personally don't put in decks. Some of them I have never put in a deck. Some of these I have put in decks but have started taking out of all my decks for various reasons. What do you think? Are there cards that you never touch? Are there cards on this list that maybe you are going to consider taking out of your decks after I made a case for why you shouldn't play them? Let me know in the comments below, but that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.